fenirob here. As we close out 2022, it's time for me to share the top 10 games I played for the first time in 2022. That doesn't mean they were released this year, just that I didn't play them until then. I hope maybe some of these will reinforce your love for some excellent games, or maybe there might be one or two you'll discover for the first time. Either way, thanks for joining me, and now on to the list. As we go through the list, I will try to put links in the description below or even on the screen for any videos I've made for any of these games. Also, while you're here, why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me? Thanks. Two games that didn't quite make the list but should be mentioned here are Ark Nova and First Empires. In Ark Nova, you'll be building a zoo using cards to build your engine. You'll have a spatial element because you're making the pens to put the animals in, and it's a puzzle aspect, sort of like Baron Park, where you want to maximize the efficiency of the puzzle pieces you're placing in your zoo. It has great art, really good mechanics that work together. I really enjoyed the game. It just didn't quite make it in the top 10. The other one is First Empires. In that one, you're doing area control mostly, but you're using roll and write aspects to achieve that. You roll dice at the beginning of your turn. You move up different columns in your civilization's board, like movement of armies, strength of armies, a little bit of cultural bumps to give you more points, let you roll extra dice, that sort of thing. Very simple mechanics, but it works really well on its way to this area control aspect. It really caught me by surprise. I also enjoyed the artwork, very bright colors, just a great game. Didn't quite make it in the top 10. I'll put links for both of these games so you can see any videos I've done on them, but I highly recommend checking those out. At number 10, Dungeons, Dice, and Danger by Alia. I think many roll and write games try to modify an already successful game's mechanics so that it can be enjoyed in a different and usually more accessible way, while still retaining the prior game's theme. I'm constantly searching for a roll and write with just enough heft to make it feel like I'm playing a game, but not so much heft as to get bogged down in too many details. To date, my favorite roll and write is Fleet, the dice game, which made my 2021 top 10 list. That game's commercial fishing theme fills an economic box on my roll and write genre list. I don't have such a list, but now I'll probably be making one. Dungeons, Dice, and Danger, or as I call it, DD&D, is that but for Dungeons and Dragons or a similar dungeon crawl type of experience. Even though it has no role-playing element, it does a really good job of simulating the exploration, monster fighting, and treasure aspects of a fantasy role-playing game. DD&D checks the box for the dungeon crawl roll and write that I never knew I needed. 1 sheet, 6 dice, and a pencil, and you're on your way to a fun 30-45 minutes of exploring, getting treasure, etc. I was not expecting to be wowed by this one, but if you asked me to play a roll and write now, I'd probably suggest this one. Of note, it's designed by Magic the Gathering's Richard Garfield. Check it out, Dungeons, Dice, and Danger. At number 9, A War of Whispers by Starling Games. This game's epic look, with its mechanics such as area control, deception, some negotiation, and even a little bit of gambling on other players' actions, has most of the elements I love about tabletop gaming. It's set in a kind of generic Game of Thrones world with 5 factions trying to impose their dominance. Each player is assigned a secret, random order of how they want the factions to finish at the end of the game. During the game, players manipulate the board by bidding for actions and moving cubes around on the map to influence the outcome. Sometimes players may have parallel interests whether they know it or not, and nothing is as satisfying as tricking your opponent into unknowingly helping you at their expense. A War of Whispers is a unique beast that looks like a war game, but plays a lot like a social deduction game. It's definitely one of the best games I've played this year. Check it out. At number 8, Brian Boru, High King of Ireland by Osprey Games. This game and its sexy title uses trick-taking as the main mechanic, but it's so much more than that. Players are vying to score points in several areas of the board. These different battlefronts include fighting Viking invaders, courting spouses, and gaining religious influence, and they're all tied back to the trick-taking aspect. Cards have a win reward, but they also have a losing reward. Sometimes you might want to lose if that's the reward you need. It's a pretty unique twist on multi-use cards that works really well here. Trick-taking by itself doesn't provide as much fun as it used to for me. Sorry, Rummy. But using it as a means to an end, kind of like deck building has become in recent years, is a great idea, and I hope it gets implemented in more games. As it is, Brian Boru is an excellent game and deserves to be on this list. Check it out. Landing at number 7 is Space Empires 4X from GMT Games. I love a good 4X game. That's pretty well documented. Space Empires has been on my list to play for years, and 2022 was its time to shine for me. The space theme, the exploration, the economic buildup, and the tension when you finally confront your enemies, and you will, make this game a classic. The only knocks against it I can think of are the old school chits and the housekeeping aspects of the economic phase. Bring out your paper and your pencil and do some math. But those should not be impediments to obtaining the game because the benefits easily outweigh those detriments here. Also, if you want to eliminate these aspects completely, try out the game on Board Game Arena. It does all the math and the interface is quickly intuitive. It reminds me of the old computer game 4Xs that got me into the genre back in the day. The nostalgia aspects of this game only add to the experience here. This one is a classic for any 4X lover out there, well deserving of my top 10 in 2022. Making its way in at number 6, Civilization New Dawn with the Terra Incognita expansion from Fantasy Flight Games. I've been playing the computer version of Sid Meier's Civilization since its first iteration. It's an all-time masterpiece in gaming and probably my favorite computer game. How does this tabletop version measure up? Surprisingly well. It absolutely captures the essence of the original while streamlining the experience so that it fits within a 2-hour time frame. The constant rotation of your available actions provides so many strategic choices that players will always stay engaged even when it's not their turn. The Terra Incognita expansion adds the Exploration X to the mix and reduces some of the abstractness of combat by adding army components which move around the board. I think the expansion takes the core game to the next level and really is a must-have. This is a great game, especially if you are a 4X lover. At number 5, Space Corp 2025 to 2300 AD from GMT Games. This one caught me a bit by surprise. I kept seeing it at my friendly local game store, Dice Drop Games, and decided to have a closer look. I love space themes, and I saw this one look like a 4X game without the Combat X, so I figured I would try it out. Good move, me. I've played the first 2 of the game's 3 boards, Mariners and Planeteers, at 2 players and solo. Both worked well, but the solo mode may be the most fun I've had in a solo gaming experience, and it's the reason this game made my top 10 for this year. Somehow there's just enough tension to make it feel like you're racing other human opponents, even though all you do is flip over a single card for the AI's turn. This lets the player spend almost the entire game focusing on their own turns as opposed to fiddling with the game, and that's pretty cool. I highly recommend this one. It's a great game, Space Corp 2025 to 2300 AD. At number 4, Brass Birmingham from Roxley Games. This economic euro has gotten plenty of hype recently, and while that's not always an indicator of an actual good game, in this case it definitely is. As with many of the games I tend to like, the mechanisms here are pretty simple. Play 2 cards, draw 2 cards. But compared to the mechanic simplicity, the level of strategy required to excel at the game is as high as it gets in gaming, at least for me. Every decision feels like it could be the difference between winning and losing, and it probably is. I've played it a couple of times and I really enjoyed it. It's absolutely a brain burner and not something I would expect to play that often because it can be physically exhausting for me. But I do hope to build up my mental stamina so it gets played more. For sure, it's a must-have for my collection and it's easily in this year's top 10. Number 3, Wallenstein from Queen Games. This one's new to me, but it's an older game. It combines action programming with area control. Every player has the same 10 actions, and everyone takes the same action at the same time, but the province where the action will be performed is simultaneously revealed. That's the main decision space of the game. Every decision seems way more important than it should be, and that's where the game shines for me. To quote the philosopher Michael Tyson, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Battles are resolved with a cube tower where combatants drop their respective cubes in, and whoever has the most to come out at the bottom wins. Sounds deterministic and unexciting to you? Well, because of the tower's design, oftentimes cubes get stuck in the nooks and crannies of the tower and get dislodged in future combats. This uncertainty in probabilities somehow makes a huge difference in the outcomes, and that uncertainty influences the player's decisions on when and if to attack an opponent. It's actually very cool and quite exciting. Come for the cube tower, stay for an excellent game. Score 1 for the old-timers. Wallenstein rocks. At number 2, First Rat by Pegasus Spiele. I've played this one as much as any other game this year, and it's always a hit no matter the group. There are very few mechanics, but the choices are interesting because you want to be as efficient as possible in maximizing your scoring opportunities. It's a race, but finishing too fast might leave you behind on points when the game ends. Also, I love the theme in the game. We're rats in a junkyard, trying to collect resources to build a rocket and launch it to the cheese moon. It's a little bit deeper than it appears on the surface because while it requires faith to pursue, it is an impossible task. Whoa. First Rat is a great game that deserves a lot of acclaim and one I hope stays in our rotation in the future. You should definitely check this one out. It's a gem. And now, for the best game I played for the first time in 2022, Obsession from Kayenta Games. Obsession is clearly a labor of love from designer Dan Halligan. Think of it as Downton Abbey, the board game. You are the head of a Victorian English house trying to bring your family's prestige and wealth back to prominence after a rough patch. To do this, you'll put on events, inviting all the who's who's of society. You'll want to renovate your beat-up estate and manage the staff, all with the goal of impressing your guests. Organize, party, and court your family's way to a comeback. While each individual mechanic here is solid, none of them are special in and of themselves, but they all come together to fit the theme so well that the overall experience feels like something special. It's tabletop magic. The upstairs-downstairs expansion adds some extra staff, rooms, and other goodies, so even if you can master the core game, which I have not after several plays, there's plenty more to keep you interested. Great stuff. Easily my game of the year. Well, there you have it. That's the fenirob Top 10 of 2022. I hope you have a wonderful end to your 2022. Here's to all of us in 2023. Thank you for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel.